Well, hey, Slingers, welcome to another Wordslinger podcast. It's good to have you here. We're just going to be shooting the breeze, so stick around.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Well, I am Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger. I'm glad to have you here. It is, you'll have to pardon me. I'm a little on the brain fried side right now. It's been a long week already. And I'm recording this on a Thursday afternoon, and I just got done with a kind of junket of podcasts. Always in live streams, things like that is can be a little taxing as much as I enjoy doing this stuff. When you're sort of sitting in front of a camera all day and not moving all that much, it can be kind of exhausting. Plus, you know, the pressure of answering questions and things like that. But it is something I love. I was talking just now to Draft Digital. That show, by the way, that episode's live right now on YouTube if you want to go see how that went. I was talking about Author Anchor and using virtual assistants as part of your business. You know, you've heard me talk about that before on the show. If that's something you're interested in, I do highly recommend you go do the free discovery call at authoranchor.com/promo. That'll actually get you $50 off your first month if you decide to do the service. No contracts or obligations. There, officially plugged Author Anchor for the episode. So, it's been an interesting week. A lot of things happening, some ups and downs. You know, there's been something I've been waiting on for a long time that, you know, it just kind of keeps getting pushed back. And it's something that's having an impact on me in so many ways. You know, financially, it's an impactful thing. But also there's another cost to this. And it's something I wanted to talk about. This is something, I don't know, there's certain things we don't talk about enough. And I had a revelation kind of thing, and then I had a sort of mental correction on it. So I was taking a walk a few days ago thinking about all this. Without going too deep into details, there's an opportunity that has come up that is good, that is going to happen, but it's not happening very fast. And, you know, I keep kind of turning away other opportunities, sort of to my detriment. Now I'm kind of in a weird place where, you know, I don't know. It's a leap of faith scenario, and it's costing me. And that's frustrating. And you may have experienced something like that, and I want to empathize with you on that because it is rough. It's rough when you have hope that is deferred. I had this thought on my walk a few days ago that it was a toxic hope. It makes some sense. That term makes a little bit of sense because there comes a point where just continually having hope in something that doesn't ever materialize, or doesn't feel like it ever materializes, wears you down and it just starts to kind of eat at your soul a little. And so it does start to feel toxic. And then I thought, you know, that's just dumb. Hope cannot be toxic. Hope is hope. What's toxic is my expectation. There's the hope of what's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. It's even more than faith at this point. It's a given. When it happens, that's the part that's taking the leap of faith. It's been 2 years of this, and we're kind of in the final stretch, the 15 feet from gold, and it's just there's always something. My wife and I joked that it's always just 2 more weeks, just 2 more weeks, because that's what I've been told for almost consistently for at least the past year and a half. It should be just another 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks comes and goes. You don't hear a word, and you reach out and say, yeah, there was this unexpected delay, but it should just be 2 more weeks. So I've joked with these guys that, when this happens, we should all get T-shirts that say just 2 more weeks. There is something about that kind of thing where you continuously have this opportunity hung in front of you, dangled like the carrot, right? And then it doesn't happen. And after a while, you start to think, well, it's not going to happen. And then maybe you give up and you start looking at other options. That's tempting. But to call it toxic was the problem I had. I don't think we should ever think of hope that way. Maybe you have to move on. Maybe the time isn't right. Maybe it's not going to happen. But don't ever think that the hope is the reason for that. That's the point I really want to make is, hope deferred sucks, but it's still hope. And the world needs more of that. There's so much happening in the world right now. And whatever your political flavor or persuasion, there's a lot happening in government. There's a lot happening on the world stage that has a lot of people frightened. And I see a lot of people abandoning hope. And it's shocking to me. The things they'll say, it's really intriguing to me to hear people talk about love and how they want to fight hate. But then they will go say the most hateful things I've ever heard anyone say, calling for people's deaths or celebrating people's deaths. That's even worse. I mean, someone died, their family is having to deal with this tragedy, there's suffering, and you're gleeful about it. Or choosing to overlook the evil of something because it happens to align with your political persuasion. That starts to make you feel like maybe hope, maybe there is no hope, maybe hope is toxic. I know I've gotten that way at times. It's interesting. I'm watching right now. I never watched this show when it was on regular TV live, but there's a show called This Is Us. You may have heard of it. Never really gave it a shot until it was already done. And it was, in fact, I hadn't really heard much about it I would see the occasional promo for it or something on Facebook or something, but I never really paid attention. It was never in my sphere. But I've been watching it. I'm in love with the show because of the method of storytelling. If you are a writer in particular, but if you're any kind of storyteller, and I would argue that most people are, especially if you are an entrepreneur of any type, marketing is storytelling. And this show, and I'm a novelist by trade, right? And this show has some of the finest storytelling I have ever seen. The writing is superb. The characterization is superb. I'm a big fan. I need to actually investigate. Who are the writers? Who's the director? You'd think I would already know that, but I've just been glued to the show. I just started season 5. Season 5 was shot at the tag end of 2020, and if you are keeping track, 2020, of course, was a difficult year for the world. 2020 was the year that the pandemic made the scene. Everything up to that, felt solid, normal. The technology is pretty close to what it is now, so you were watching something that felt very timely. And I knew I had heard him say something about it being 2018 at one point. And so I'm like, there's going to be a pandemic overlap. And I wasn't looking forward to it. And sure enough, season 5 starts. Season 4 finishes. Season 5 starts. They've got the same scene they ended with. They start with, and they sort of ham-fisted worked in a reference to the pandemic. Now, it was clear that by this time, the pandemic itself, this is a controversial statement, but it was over. But we were still kind of holding on. But all the initial stuff was done. All the mask mandates and the social distancing and people staying 6 feet or more away from each other. I don't know what you think, what you believe. I've seen a lot of things come out now that show just how true some of that was, how untrue some of it was, but whatever. I'm starting to feel a little political there, but anyway, they're wearing masks and they're doing these things, and it just triggered me. I had like a PTSD moment, and started feeling anxious, and I started realizing that over the course of that episode. Now, since then, they've kind of moved away. There's only little tiny hints of it now, but they've moved forward with the story, and moved past all that. But it was the pandemic, and then there was the whole thing with George Floyd and the BLM movement, and so I started having this like anxiety, and I realized that period broke me, like it did a lot of people, right? So I'm not unique in this, but I realized that. But that period, that's where it all started for me. You've heard me talk about before, kind of going into like an existential crisis, having a little bit of a spin out, meltdown, breakdown kind of thing, getting burnt out. There's another name for that I haven't used much, and it is depression. And they say, there's a kind of thing, I guess, self-diagnosing depression. It's kind of a dumb idea. You really should go, if you're going to make the claim, you should go and get the clinical evaluation, So I did. I went and I've seen a couple of counselors, and did get that diagnosis. And for some reason, I've always kind of stood back from that. I didn't want to claim that. It's rough. But that depression led to a lot of life changes and choices. And I realized that a lot of it came out of that moment in 2020 where I felt confined, where I felt like all my choices had been narrowed down to nothing, where I felt isolated. And, Kara and I were getting on the road at that time. And so it was supposed to be this magical, wonderful time for us to travel full time. And it was all overemphasized. Our isolation was overemphasized because we would go places and, some places would have mask mandates and some wouldn't, and some would be closed because of the pandemic, and some would close their restrooms, and, there was all this stuff that happened. And I started to lose hope. And that was new for me, because all my life, even in the worst moments and the worst scenarios of my life, hope was always there. I always knew things were going to work out. Things will be okay. And for the first time in my life, I was starting to feel like maybe that wasn't true. And so, fast forward to watching This Is Us, and I started feeling that same thing again. And then I realized it felt familiar. And I mean like recently familiar. And then I started to realize that's what I am feeling. That's why I started thinking, that's why the term toxic hope came up. It was like I have PTSD, but that the trigger for it, the trauma, was caused by in my head, I'm associating it with being caused by having hope, because all that hope I had before disappeared. And then anytime it seemed like things were going to get better, that imploded too. And it was like that way for a long time. And I just felt like I was powerless. Felt like I had no options, So I'm not alone in this. And I know that. And I even feel hinky about calling it PTSD. It's not like people were shooting at me. There was no violence, not for me directly. I mean, for some there was, but I don't have another term for it. So I use the only one I have. And if it's wrong, I apologize. If it offends you, I apologize. I just don't have a way to describe this right now. And I don't want to refer to hope as being toxic. So it impacted a lot of what I do. This show ended for a while because of all that in 2020. It just became too overwhelming to keep everything balanced. While other people were gaining the ability to have all this extra free time and build things and fix up their homes and take on projects and stuff, I actually had my workload quadrupled. We struggled because we were balancing. I was balancing doing a daily live stream while we were driving and parking in remote places, and so that limited where we could go. So I felt even more limited. Some things changed in my career and work life that also made me feel limited and even unappreciated and things like that. So there was a lot going on. So yeah, so watching this kind of play out a little, even just this tiny bit that it has in this show, triggered a lot of feelings for me. All this has caused me to, I'm exploring all this because I want to know why, but more than that, part of why I do this, because frankly, I've not made much money from podcasting. In fact, a lot of times it's just work I do for free. But part of why I do it, part of why I do this show, is that I want to be able to understand things in a way that I can explain them in an empathetic way for you. And because maybe you're feeling the same sort of thing. I also want to learn. I want to share with you what I learned so that you can apply, the people that I talk to and the topics that I cover and the resources that I uncover. I want you to be able to learn from those, use those, apply those in your own life, in your own career, whether you're an author, whatever it is you do. I want that for you. And I want to be someone who serves you in that way. I'll be honest right now, I'm this is a hard time in my life, and it's hard for me to kind of keep coming back to the microphone, to the keyboard, and keep pouring out when I feel like I'm not filling back up sometimes. So that can get a little rough. And then I think, well, if that's happening to me, then it's surely happening to someone else out there, and you may need this. And so, how about this? We'll just go through it together. And I'm going to have to look for ways to kind of fill my bucket, as my wife says. But if I do that with the aim of sharing that with you, then we can both be blessed and both benefit. Hey, it's Kevin Tumlinson here, and I want to talk to you about something that's made a real difference in my work over the years, and that is Pro Writing Aid. I've been using this for years. It's hands down the best assistive editing tool that I've found. And what I love most is that it works wherever I write. So whether I'm in Scrivener or Microsoft Word, Substack, or anywhere else, Pro Writing Aid is right there with me. And unlike other tools, I get control over the kind of suggestions it gives me. So there's no rigid rules. It's just smart, actionable feedback that's tailored to my writing. And the best part is that the team behind Pro Writing Aid actually cares about independent writers and creators. They're focused on helping individual creators like you and me, not just big enterprise customers. And that is unfortunately becoming a kind of rare thing these days. And that's why I'm proud to support them. So if you're serious about leveling up your writing wherever or however you write, go to prowritingaid.com and use the code KEVIN20 at checkout for 20% off of your subscription. That's prowritingaid.com, code KEVIN20. And trust me, you'll be glad you did. On the publishing front, I've gotten, as I said, the edits back from J.D. Barker for our book together, which he oddly refers to as sci-fi, and I can see it. It is probably more sci-fi. I think there's a thin line between sci-fi and thriller. I keep thinking of it as an archaeological thriller, but I actually can see very much why he thinks it's a sci-fi novel instead. So I'm just going to lean in on that because I've written sci-fi. So we'll call it a sci-fi thriller. Going through this, something interesting happened this morning. This is why I bring this up. A lot of mornings I'll wake up at a certain time, usually around 3 a.m. And, everybody has those times where they wake up and they start thinking about something, like they think about money, or they think about, something, taxes or something that's got them stressed out, and it's hard for them to get back to sleep. And this morning I realized that I woke up and I was thinking about this book. And, well, what if I had this character do this? And, what about, where I mentioned that character doing something completely opposite in an earlier chapter? Got to remember to add this, talk about that thing, take that thing out, change those dates, change that timeline. It's a lot of work. It's going to cascade. I'm going to have to read the whole book end to end again. No, that's not even it. It's really all about the story. That's the stuff that I'm sitting there, laying there, thinking about. And I thought, well, how cool is that? Like, I could be laying here thinking about taxes or thinking about money, and that would stress me out. But instead, I'm laying here thinking about how to make this book better. That's got to say something. It's got to mean something. So, looking forward to seeing that book done. I think it's an amazing book. By all indications, JD also thinks it's going to be a great book. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Podcasts, I'm doing the Writers Inc. podcast regularly. We just recorded an episode today. I'm doing a lot of guest spots on podcasts. I had an incident, time flub when it comes to a podcast in Australia. It was for Thursday. Today is Thursday the 17th, and it was for Thursday the 17th at 3:30 p.m. Central. But it wasn't. It was actually supposed to be my Wednesday the 16th, their Thursday the 17th, because they're a day ahead. So time zones, my arch nemesis. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. Wordslinger podcast. I've got interviews here and there. I got some stuff coming up on that front, but I still want to try to primarily make this me talking to you. And you can talk back. Make sure you leave a comment wherever you're finding this. Actually, no. Leave a comment if you're on YouTube. Otherwise, go to wordslingerpodcast.com and leave your comments, because I am just never going to find them on the podcast platforms. You can actually find this show at wordslingerpodcast.com, all the back episodes and everything, and every one of them has a place for you to leave a comment, or you can click over and send me a note or whatever right from that page. You can also find all my Substack posts and everything. Every Friday I do a Substack post. And that, by the way, is something else that's given me a lot of hope. It solved a lot of problems for me to start using Substack for blogging and my newsletter. Not just like more technical business related problems, but it, frankly, I'm enjoying the process more. It's more refreshing to my soul to do those posts. And I was having a conversation with Dave Cullen. He's got the Dave Cullen Show on YouTube. I highly recommend you check that out. If you like movies and TV, he does reviews of that stuff. we had a conversation. Well, I think I'm going to blank out on it. I think I'm going to blank. Sorry. Like I said, long week. It's going to come to me probably after I stop chatting here. Anyway. Sorry. I hate leading into things like that and then forgetting what I'm doing. That just tells you what the current stress and pressure is on my brain. All right. Well, look. Since I'm not going to remember that, we're just going to go ahead and wrap up. If you wouldn't mind, make sure you like, share, subscribe, all those things on YouTube. Otherwise, if you are following me on Substack, that is a great place to kind of keep in touch with me. Yeah, I try to engage with everybody who engages with me. I just love that platform. And that's probably what I was going to be talking about was, I do know what that was. It was, we were talking about how YouTube, Dave was doing, he would do YouTube videos, and there would be a time where, he didn't have as much time to produce one as he would normally have. So he kind of just throws together an episode. He says he could spend weeks planning, scripting and planning an episode, and it gets hardly any engagement, but he could do one that took him like 30 minutes to do, and that's goes viral and one of his most successful videos. And I said, that's similar. I've done the same thing. I would have these elaborate posts on a blog or on Substack, and spend a lot of time on pre-plan them, do a lot of design, and they get no response, just crickets. And then I do one like day of, because I forgot to do one, earlier in the week. Whip one up that day, send it out, just 20, 30 minutes of work. And everyone loves it, and everyone comments on it, and everyone shares it, and everyone, tells me that it moved them and inspired them. And I think it's because, for me at least, and possibly for Dave Cullen as well, but I think it's because that work is, because it's spontaneous, it's also more authentic, and it resonates with people because they can feel you in that work. There's a key, there's a secret there. So I've actually graduated to, that's the only way I do these posts now. I don't pre-plan any of them. I don't know what I'm going to be writing about or talking about. Same with these episodes of Wordslinger. Sometimes I have an idea before I start, but I don't pre-plan any of this stuff. If I don't have an interview, there's nothing in this episode that was built ahead of time beyond, say, the intro and the ads and things like that. So take that for what you will. I remember one time doing a talk at an author meetup. It wasn't a conference. It was like an evening in Denver. And I mentioned afterward, because they were like, that was a great talk. I'm like, yeah, thanks. That was all off the cuff. And the lady who organized it says, well, that's disrespectful. And I thought, how is it disrespectful? 5 seconds ago, it was a great talk. You guys got a lot out of it. I know the stuff I'm talking about. I know the story I'm trying to tell. How is it disrespectful to come in with no notes? But that's the way a lot of people see that you're not prepared. If you're not prepared, and I can understand that to a degree. If you are completely unprepared for a talk, you ramble and you go on and you don't get to a point, that can be disrespectful. But things like this are so informal. It's such a conversation. I just want to share my experience with you, and I pray that experience resonates with you and helps you in some way. And I know from long conversations with people outside of the podcasting space that a lot of times it's these sorts of genuine and authentic conversations that have the biggest impact. And I see that played out in my Substack, in this show, in a lot of things. So that's why I do it. And if you don't like it, I understand. Let me know. But I don't think it's something I'm willing to change, because it has had such an impact, not just on my audience and my readers, but on me as well. And, basically, as a pantser, I do this with an entire novel. So, I mean, I've gotten pretty good at coming to the point. Not doing that with this book with JD, man. This book has taken a lot of planning, a lot of work. The most I've ever done. I consider this a kind of journeyman piece, honestly. And it's a transition for me into a different type of writing career. And I'm very pleased with how it's going. And it's changed my approach to some things. So I'll be talking more about that as we go. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you for being a part of the Wordslinger podcast. I hope this episode resonated with you in some way, and I hope you share it with people because, that helps me grow, but it also, honestly, it just helps other people sometimes. If you know someone is struggling with depression or anxiety or something like that, maybe this show could help them. And if not, if you're listening and you're struggling with those things, I'm happy to talk to you. We can set up a chat and everything. I'm not a therapist. I don't give great advice all the time. But I can try to empathize. But take care of yourselves. God bless you. Hope you have a wonderful weekend ahead, weeks ahead. And I hope all the things that you are hoping for are no longer deferred, and that your hope is far from toxic, but is instead the light of your life. So take care of yourself. I'll see you next time.